Welcome to Isn't It Obvious, where things are obvious. That's going to be the intro.
That's going to be the intro forever now.
Right.
So Vivaldi, not only being an amazing composer in his own right, was also a stupid commie fascist. Fight me.
That's why you should always listen to Debussy. Yep.
Oh, shit, I lose. Hello, and welcome to Isn't It Obvious? Your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, hopefully less, half-hour...
What?
Double little audience. Our audience is fantastic, and we thank you every single day, Mom.
Sure.
I should really call my mom more often.
We all should call her.
No, that is not what this podcast is about. We just give arbitrary thanks hundreds of times a year, and that's it.
Mm.
If that isn't enough for a mom, I don't know what is.
You do realize we're going to have an amazing Mother's Day podcast.
Oh my God, you're right.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
We have an amazing Father's Day podcast to show that Father's Day supporting patriarchy is bad. Why was this not open? Where the hell were you guys here? I mean, come on.
You know, Phil, I really like the Mother's Day idea. I think this is great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
I don't hate that
And
idea.
everyone can have ice cream and pickles. Anyway.
No.
Like at the same time?
That's terrible.
Like pickle ice cream?
I don't want either of those things. Let's just have nachos.
It's our
and
shortest
call it
episode,
good.
but I'm guaranteeing it's our greatest.
Let's just have nachos and beer. That sounds like a good Mother's Day.
Oh, that sounds the best.
It does.
For which mother? Not mine.
Well, okay, mine would be like wine and chips, but close enough.
I mean, calorically, kinda?
Basically the same.
Texturally, not at all.
No, not at all. Unless it's sparkling wine, which that's close.
Is the yellow cheese of nachos? I'm real confused at this metaphor, Sarah, gonna be honest.
Well, what kind of gross ass nachos are you eating? What's
Nothing that would pair well with wine.
Oh, you au contraire.
Mon frere.
Wine goes well with
No, because you're
cheese.
taking off the calories of the cheese to insert the wine. So I don't know a wine that would pair with chips better than cheese that would pair with chips.
No, you can keep the cheese in there. You can keep the cheese in there.
But that's more calories.
They're just
than you can't have wine.
deconstructed nachos. You can have as much.
But then you can't have wine if you have the calories of cheese.
You
You're
can
a health
have
podcast.
no.
You know
We
this.
can have as many fucking calories as we want. We're grown-ass adults.
Grown ass.
We are fully capable of consuming.
And now we will never have a Mediterranean diet sponsorship. Thanks, Sarah.
You can just have deconstructed nachos with olives on the side.
A little bit of fish.
Nope, check with our sponsors. It's fine. It's good. We're smart.
Just a little bit of delicious cheese and some Kalamata olives and some wine. It's really good. You don't even need the chips at that point.
Why is it that mothers are associated with wine rather than beer? Because like nachos and beer work.
Women like wine, I guess.
No, you both are suburban princesses.
That's what I mean.
And that is what society has told you that suburban mothers like, is wine.
Well, they're not wrong.
Because everybody likes wine.
True?
Wait, is anyone
Except for the
drinking
people
wine?
I
That is
know
not
who
questioning.
don't. Because I know people who don't like
Ooh.
wine.
But are they women?
Like who?
Like a couple of my friends who, I mean, I could name them, but not on a podcast. So.
Are they from Canada?
No, but one has, she doesn't really like alcohol, period.
That doesn't count. You can't include those type of people that
Well,
don't
the
like
thing
alcohol.
is, she likes the idea of alcohol, but she always gets sick whenever she drinks it.
Okay, that's actually kind of sad.
So, just didn't deal with that in their 20s and learned how to power through those feelings and just keep the party going, as I take a drink.
She did do that, and then she always regretted it. And then she'd get really mad because she doesn't like the taste of it, and she'd get really mad because I would fucking pound him back. And she wanted to be the drunk person, but she never could make herself drink enough to get drunk because she just didn't like the taste. She wanted to be that person, though, and it drove her batty.
Who wants to be that person?
She does.
What mentality is that? You want to be the drunk person at the party?
No. She's also the person who decided to pick up smoking because she wanted to go on smoke breaks with her smoking friends.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's a longer history of healthier aspects of smoking than there is for drinking. So, I mean, that makes practical sense.
It does in her mind, I guess. I don't know.
Well, okay, two things about that. One is, having smoke breaks would be awesome. when you can hang out with your friends.
But without the smoking. You
Without
just
the
have
smoking.
breaks that
But
you already get.
that's not how addiction works.
No.
Addiction has more of a personal requirement.
Also, cigarettes are just ridiculously
Disgusting
expensive.
and
Like,
expensive.
how can
Great,
people-
I know, Phil, and I've been holding back on saying how great they are, but
Aside from like the personal liberties of whether or not you should have it, I'm just saying, like, as a cost per vice ratio, this is terrible. Like,
Yeah, I
this
didn't
is
say
not
she
right.
was a good, like, decision maker.
So for our sample
but
size,
that nothing about vice is about good decision making. That's why it's a vice crime.
It's not a crime.
Not a crime. It's why it's labeled as a vice. Sorry.
It's only a vice if you're not controlling it.
What? No, there's plenty of vices that you. Okay, first of all,
If it affects your ability to function normally in the world, I would say it is a vice.
So caffeine's a vice?
No, because it doesn't affect your ability to function.
But it does. It's an addictive chemical.
Okay, when I say that,
affects your
I
ability
mean
to function when you
negatively.
don't have it.
I mean negatively impact. I mean, like, it interferes with your ability to do your job.
Not having caffeine can interfere with your ability to do your job.
so withdrawal.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because I don't feel like there's
You've
any...
never had a caffeine headache?
Yes, but it doesn't interfere with my ability to do my job. Maybe it interferes to
So,
a point.
you with a caffeine headache work as efficiently as you without a caffeine headache when you have caffeine
Also-
to assuage away that headache?
Before you answer, what if it interferes with your personal life? So after you're done with your caffeine binge for your work and you go home and you crash, isn't that not just also an impact to your personal life as well?
Yes, if you're that bad, then it becomes a vice, I suppose. If the substance you're consuming is negatively impacting your, interpersonal relationships, your ability to hold a job, then yes, then it's a vice. Then it's a problem. Then it's an
So
addiction.
addiction is fine if it means you can conform to societal requirements, even if it's bad for your health.
If you are able to keep your job and keep your relationships normal, I think you're more than
Even if you have a
You can do whatever
addiction to a foreign substance.
you can do whatever the hell you want to do to your body if that's your choice.
But it becomes no longer your choice when that starts having
That's
a
true.
societal, air quotes, perceived negative effect on society.
Okay, so if you're addicted and you don't want to be, then that's a problem. If you're addicted and you
But
don't
if you're
care,
addicted, it's bad for you. And it's
but who cares?
societally
There's so many things
supported.
we do that aren't addictive that are bad for us, and we do them anyway. Who
That's
cares?
true.
Like,
Like,
Using harsh soap when you're in the, shower.
sure, using harsh chemicals on your clothing, using harsh chemicals to wash your dishes, using, I don't know,
and
whatever.
is that a socially enforced action?
Are
Well,
any
what's
socially things
socially
enforced?
enforced about
Right.
an addiction?
The fact that your friend wanted to take up smoking in order to go out on smoke breaks.
She didn't have to do that. It wasn't socially
but
forced
that was
upon
that
her.
was what her want was. Her impression of society was that
Mm-hmm.
she had to smoke to go out on smoke breaks.
No. Like, she is incentivized to
chose.
smoke in order to go to smoke
Yep.
breaks. There's a difference between
Exactly.
enforce and incentivize. Enforce is gulags.
Yep.
Incentivize is capitalism.
Yeah, she wasn't forced to do this. I don't know. I honestly don't know, like, her mindset when she made that decision to start doing it.
This is actually a counter argument to marijuana and other drugs that allow people to act loopy, that are not these type of subsect of the population don't like alcohol for insert various reasons here why. I often felt like for marijuana laws or cannabis laws, it seems weird that alcohol is actually pretty devastating to families.
Yeah, my uncle just passed away from it.
Many marijuana laws have nothing to do with the effect that marijuana has upon the person, and it's merely the fact that if you allow this to grow, it tampers with other industries,
Like alcohol?
like paper industries.
Oh.
Like hemp. Yeah.
Yeah, because hemp is a faster growing renewable paper source than it is for wood pulp. But lumber barons in the late 1800s into the early 1900s didn't want that.
We do want that because trees take a long time to grow and we still need them because they're,
No,
good
because there's the devil weed, and that's close to hemp, so all of it should be illegal, Sarah. Come on.
I feel like
Sounds like it does two great things and we should grow them.
No, because
Anyway,
that stops me making money on trees.
We're like almost minutes in and we haven't actually come up with our topic for the day, Micah. So you wanna get us started on that?
Well, I had it 10 minutes ago. You two just kept talking.
longest
wonder how that
open
feels.
ever.
I would personally hope that I do not interfere with either of your topics as much as you interfere with mine that I'm
Excuse
taking
me? We are,
on-
that's all we
on the
do.
chin, so nicely as I'm punching my beard, not hitting my chin at all.
I feel like this is just deflection because you've totally forgotten your topic and it's...
No, I
escaped
already
you.
wrote mine down. And if you can read it, it's that chicken scratch right there.
Cannot read that.
I've seen your writing, Micah.
It's encrypted.
It's impossible to read. It's impossible to read.
Yeah, no. It's a German French Französisch.
Yeah, try that one again.
German French Französisch.
That's different than what you said.
German French Französisch.
I give up.
What is the topic?
And that's all I want. All I want is for people to give up. Anyway, the topic is...
My hope just died. I don't... You can't just say that to me right now. It's been a really rough week, Micah.
I am a younger sibling. How have you not figured this out yet?
No.
I don't care if I win. I only care that you don't win. That's all it is. Ties are great with me. I'm fine with ties.
No.
I only care about you saying I give up.
No, I give up on life. I'm just done. I just don't want to be here anymore.
Oh, so you don't think voting should be paired with income tax giving in as opposed to just country affiliation?
Wait, what? Was this your topic?
Yes, isn't it obvious that the right to vote should be based on income tax as opposed to just where you live?
No.
Wait.
Why?
Can you use this as
Wait,
an
what
example?
If you pay income tax to the federal U.S. government, that is how you get your right to vote, period.
So you have to work.
You have to contribute to the society of which you are giving input of
And what about
its
people
direction.
who don't work? What about stay-at-home moms? What about people who aren't on government dime? What about people who are freelancers?
Do they pay sales tax?
So they
Do
just...
they pay federal sales
Yeah,
tax?
but what about people who pay sales tax who aren't citizens?
Wait, there's a difference between sales tax and income tax, though, right? Are you talking about any
Yes.
tax whatsoever, or are you talking
Income
about
tax, income tax. Anything where what you do as a job reflects on the national economy.
So, okay, but you said specifically income tax.
Yeah.
Not sales tax?
Not sales tax, no.
So you have to work. What about people who can't
Yeah,
work? What about people who can't work? Like they're disabled.
Then take their time, because they aren't working, clearly, to support a political party.
Oh, this kind
What
of...
if they can't, though? What if they're physically unable to perform a job?
Then do we really need their input in our society, Sarah? Come on. We're a society of able members.
Okay, Sparta. Just kick off those people down, though, the
As
mountainside.
far as originalism goes, like, this is actually pretty close to, like, you must be a landowner. Because back then, landowners were the ye olden times factory.
Right, but instead of you owning land, which in our current economy is dumb,
Right.
you just need to have a job.
Yeah,
What about moms or dads? What if one person in the household is the stay-at-home person and only the partner is working?
No, this is a strange kind of dilemma because...
Would that mean for Phil and the editor that the editor wouldn't get to vote
Yeah,
at this point?
that would be true. Because the idea of...
Based on my hypothetical,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, even on the
I
basis...
don't like that.
No, but like even on the basis of like the way the United States was founded, on the sense that you go ahead and you need to be a landowner. Back then, landowner was essentially you own a factory and you're producing a good. This is before like the second industrial revolution. You had to own land in order to produce some kind of raw material or some value of good. And you could be a specialist, I suppose, like a shoe cobbler or like a silversmith. But usually the majority of the wealth came from people who owned land. So the idea of paying income tax is like kind of similar to this as well, where you have to be a contributing member of society in order to be able to cast a vote to decide the fate of the country. So those that are non-contributing members of societies, in this case, that don't pay income taxes, a lot of people would fall into that. Stay-at-home moms and dads, or people who just make their money off of capital gains.
But what is the percentage of the population that falls under that category? If you take the electorate of 18 plus, but also under this, if you have a job and you're working in high school, you can vote. So it also expands the youth voting range into 15.
That sounds like
even
a
if you work-
horrible idea.
For an incredibly small portion of the population,
Horrible
but
idea.
but that balances out the
Oh.
60-somethings
Does not.
also working
Does
that
not.
aren't retiring.
Does not balance anything out. That just makes it more people who are stupid voting.
Or it makes more importance on the vote because a younger electorate is allowed in.
Yeah, I do feel bad for
Yeah,
the
this
case of
idea.
Brexit, which I think is 5 years old at this point. And
It feels like it.
it kind of is funny where people who are at that time in grades like K through 12, I suppose, but their whole future is being determined by a bunch of old people who want to get out of Britain, and they're gonna die, and then they're And that's what it is for them. But all these people that are like, can't vote but want to stay, they have no voice. Yet they have to live with these terrible consequences. And if you take a poll, many of the younger folk appreciate the concept of staying in the EU because they could travel, they can work inside the European Economic Zone. There's a lot more benefits and opportunities for the younger folk than there are for the older ones in this case. And yet they have no choice. They have no vote. They have no power to be able to say they wanted to stay. And yet if you would have expanded the voting range, it would have overturned the first Brexit referendum. It kind of reminds me of this case for the US as well, where like taxation without representation. Yet we have a lot of people who are working at younger ages that have no ability to vote, that have no ability to change even at their own small molecular level of like city council. The decisions that are being made by retirees are determining the face of these people who are earning an income and who are trying to contribute to society, yet have no chance to change their fate until they're some arbitrary age.
Ideally, those 60 whatever year olds would be, hey, I'm going to put in policies with these up and coming voters in mind because they're our future. You would think, right?
What?
You would think that, I know, you would think that this is ideally.
What?
But no, you're right. No, you're absolutely right to laugh because.
What? Sorry, but what? Like, what?
Whoa.
Can you use it
in
as
a
an
perfect
example?
world?
You comedian, you.
In a perfect world.
No, there's no way that's ever fucking happening. Like,
You know, there's a reason why no one respects old people anymore. It's because they make shitty decisions that fuck over the younger generation like that. That's why.
No, it's just the younger
respect.
generation realizes they've been spoon-fed the same bullshit lie from an older generation who has no idea how the world is currently working.
I think it's a level of sacrifice as well. So, like, if you look at generational differences between those that had to serve for the country and those that did not, you can kind of see, like, a very selfish bent. So, like, you had the...
What do you mean by serve the country?
You had to serve or you're going to be stuck in a gulag type of thing.
So you're dealing with the Soviet model that neither of us have ever dealt with.
But there is this kind of concept of F you, I got mine.
What about the World War II American model where everyone worked for the war economy?
That's what I'm saying. Like, for those who worked for the war economy, right? So you're talking about, like, the silent generation and the greatest generation. So those, the silent generation, of having to deal with terrible things like the Great Depression, Dust Bowl, and World War I. By the time they got out, and they were the ones that were running the show for the campaigns during the World War, afterwards having the GI Bill, they're the ones that are setting it up so that their children have a better future and a chance to avoid thermonuclear war.
Where respecting your elders was actually probably a good thing.
And there are a lot of terrible
Because it
things
was worth it.
right
No?
about
Okay.
that generation too. Sorry to cut you off, Sarah, but
it's
like
all right.
things like racism still was super prevalent back then as well. But the idea that you would plant trees and you'll never see them grow, and you'll never be able to enjoy their shade because you'll be long dead. Your children, your grandchildren can enjoy this. That was way more of an idea of a legacy for them. But then you jump into baby boomers of today, and you have to realize it did have to serve in a draft for the Vietnam War, a war that was controversial to say the least.
They also had a lot of brothers and sisters to compete with, and a lot of people to compete with.
During this time, like, globalization is going through the roof. The winners of the Vietnam War were Koreans and Italians and Japanese, like all the other people that were benefiting from the arms and the technology and being the cheap manufacturing tech base. Taiwan certainly wasn't America, and it certainly wasn't Vietnam.
Wait, at what point did the One China policy come in? Because I don't know if Taiwan had that autonomy during the Vietnam War.
They were gearing up to take back China, but they just never were able
okay.
to because they realized that they were a
That's
small,
a ballsy island.
teeny tiny island, and they kind of fucked up. But anyway,
Can't do it. Don't tell
We're
me.
an island of 5 million. We're a country of 1 billion. We'll win.
I think the problem with like that
We have a
generation
flag.
and our generation too, and I'm actually thinking that we're going to follow those footsteps of the baby boomers for sure, is that the idea of
What? No, we're wrong.
oh yeah,
Hold on. Let him finish his thought, and then we can destroy it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thanks, Sarah. I think the idea of like fuck you, I got mine is totally valid for baby boomers. They grew up in a generation of uncharted prosperity. How would they know anything about sacrifice or anything like that? I certainly don't know. I never had to serve in a war or anything like this or do any type of civil service. But also when you look at the world at large, you're competing against other global powerhouses.
Who?
In the time they were growing up in the 80s, they were thinking, oh, Japan's going to eat our lunch. They're making the cars and they're making silicon wafer chips. So they're the ones that are going to surpass our GDP and economy. And they couldn't because Japan just didn't have
It's too small.
what it took. But now the same boogeyman is China. And in that case,
That's also showing how good a country can do when they don't have to put funds toward a military. And they just deal with civilian things.
nonetheless, all the work that the silent and greatest generation were doing, such as trying to create a more prosperity future for their kids, it starts to crumble around the 70s and 80s because that's the time when other economies can finally start churning, can finally start actually catching up. They're not bombed to smithereens anymore. And all these wonderful little wars like the Korean War definitely benefited Japan. And then the Vietnam War definitely benefited Korea. You could see this type of finally the manufacturing sectors that were devastated by these conflicts are finally getting back up to speed. Now you have a shrinking manufacturing basis that you can't just get a job at 18, and you're dealing with countries that are getting their act together. They don't have to spend every 50 cents that the country gets earned from their taxes is going to the military or some ridiculous number like that. And yeah, you get the sense that the baby boomers are like, you know what, I need to continue to have my piece of the pie because no one else is really looking out for me. Certainly not our political parties. Both of them are totally fine with getting China into the World Trade Organization, slashing our union power, sending our jobs overseas that don't have the same type of like OSHA or type of regulatory requirements that we do here in the States. Everyone seems to be totally fine of stripping any type of semblance of what it means to be an 18-year-old kid that can make a good living. And that's where the baby boomers are today. Now, we're here now as Gen X and Millennial, and we're seeing the pattern. And I'm already kind of getting the feeling like, well, F you, I got mine. If all these people are going to vote for things that are against their interests, why would I care about them? You know what? I'm just going to try to solidify what I have, vote for my selfish reason, and then, you know what? Screw everyone else. And that's exactly how I feel. I'm not saying that's right, but I'm in a cushy suburban princess zone so that my kids have a better chance of having a better education. If I really cared about society, as I mentioned before, I would go to an area where more downtrodden, but then maybe my kids' work ethic or whatever it is can bring up those other kids up. Nope, not happening, because I'm putting all my chips down that, you know what, at the end of the day, what's best for me is best for me. Now, that's not always true, and I hate that mentality, and I don't want my kids to learn that until they're older. So we're at a point today where if you propose an idea where only people who are productive get to vote, I kind of think about this as I'm not going to automatically shoot this down because there's some sort of strange, let's return back to the originalism roots to this. Back in the day, to be productive, you basically had to have land.
Yeah, and disenfranchise the people who can't.
But that's the idea,
Or
is that
choose not to, but then they also don't get to be
You
represented.
disenfranchise those who got theirs, and the production of where government will go is based on who are making it.
I don't
That's
like
my
that.
argument for the income tax.
I don't like that because that just makes it the people who can't or have to make choices like whether or not to have kids are going to be disenfranchised. And you can't do that because you need kids to be the new taxpayers.
But that is something that will happen whether the individual decides to have kids or not.
No.
The only time that
If
doesn't
you-
happen is that all people who decide to don't have kids.
Well, that's what I mean is, well,
So,
if
take me as an example, a single guy who's probably been single his entire life. I will not have kids.
same.
At a certain point, I personally don't feel I have a right to give an input into a country because I have nothing sustaining my sense of attachment to the world I am in beyond.
So you should not have
What I
a
can
vote
do.
then.
If I do not contribute to the society, yes.
So you're saying mothers or anyone who has a kid would
But
automatically be
in
allowed
that
to
same
vote
line,
without having
I
to work?
disagree. Because you can make organizations that can push for the voices of those that do not.
Yeah, but they can't vote themselves. They can't
But
vote.
they aren't contributing to society.
Yes, they
So
are.
then they can make... How are they?
They're making new taxpayers.
also they kind of measure
If they are only stay-at-home
And,
moms
yeah.
or stay-at-home parents,
So, yeah, whichever.
yeah, stay-at-home parents.
So they don't
for
get to
all of
vote,
them.
even though they are one half of the equation.
How many people do you know have a legitimate stay-at-home parent?
I know
At
one.
least one on this podcast.
I know one, although I don't know
Right, but how many people do you know with kids?
Quite a few.
quite a few.
How many of them have the luxury of sparing an economic income simply due to them having a kid?
Not many.
The whole breadwinner household is a thing of the past.
Yeah,
It
but-
works in some situations, and
So who's going to take care of the kid? The parents, the grandparents end up having to take care
Sure.
of the kid if the parents want to work.
and if the grandparents do that, then the grandparents can exercise upon their
So they don't work.
generational local youths.
So they don't work
to
and then they don't
do
get a vote.
better.
I mean, the thing is about the...
Someone has
But
to
they
watch
can
the kids.
influence it.
No.
Everyone can participate in the...
Yeah, but they don't get a vote. Whoever's watching the kids don't get to vote because they don't have a job.
Well, okay, two things here.
But what is a job? I'm not dealing with us in our age now. I'm dealing with us in 20 years, in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
When we're dealing with a younger generation that is having their pupils put into elected office and all of that. That is not our world anymore.
Disagrees. We still live in it. 20 years from
Do
now?
we?
We're not going to be that old. We'll be old, but we won't be that old.
I mean,
Mid-50s, we have to start moving things. And then 20 years beyond that, mid-70s.
I won't be around by then.
We're not going to be participating in the government.
Bullshit. The president of the United States is in his 60s.
And that's bad, Sarah. That's the point of this.
I don't think... Well,
we should not have someone in their 70s in
Septenarians.
power. We should
See,
not have
I
people
don't-
in their
okay.
70s dictating policy
I disagree.
for people that are 50 years younger than them.
only would agree with that because a lot of the old people in these current old people generation don't seem to give any
No,
fucks
all
about
the old people are making the shitty decisions, and that's why they shouldn't be able to make decisions.
you didn't let me finish. They aren't making good decisions because they don't care at all about the younger generation who comes after them. If they did care, if that was part of like the...
And if
that was
people
like...
were to be respectable,
That's what I mean, though. Like, if
And
people
do
were,
things.
if people were respectable, if they would only
if
just...
they did, I will shit in one hand and wish for people
You
to
keep
do the
using
right thing
that.
in another.
You
I'm
keep
gonna get a
using-
whole lot of shit on a hand.
Yeah, you keep using that one.
Because it's never going to happen the other
I
way.
disagree. You can change people's cultural expectations over time. Unfortunately, I don't think America is in that place at all right now. And I don't think our generation is going to be the generation that's going to lead the next in the way it needs to be. I don't think we're almost as bad as the boomers in a lot of ways. But
we're worse.
In some ways, we're worse.
maybe in some ways.
Yeah, boomers actually participated. Gig economy doesn't really participate.
Yeah, well, my hope is that at some point, the people who become 60, 70-year-olds are respected because they are actual leaders and they are actually doing what they can for the next generation.
And I will ask you this, Sarah. When in the last 100 years has that happened?
I mean, I would say 1930s to 1950s.
Yeah, maybe.
The beginning of the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression,
Right.
up until 47, 48, when a socialist who was like, we have to invest in our youth, came into power and saved this nation.
In the history of the world, Micah, that's quite a bit. But like, there's a lot of cultures other than the United States where older people are actually quite highly respected.
But were they respected because they made the best decisions, or were they respected because they were old and living that age was respectable in their society?
Answer to those questions is yes. They made it to
I'm
old
open
age.
ears if there was a society that is still representing today that had people of 60 plus as their sole societal engineers.
Oh, not engineers.
I would love if that happened.
They're just good. I wouldn't say they're societal engineers. I guess China would be one because I've been watching a lot of historical dramas like you do. So that's what I'm thinking of right now. But
So the Three Kingdoms, and then what until 1500s?
Well, I don't know the history of China. I just know that the elderly generation was always very respected, and they would give advice. They wouldn't necessarily make the decisions, but they were often advisors.
So they weren't necessarily vote givers.
There's no voting. Let's be honest. There's no
supported things.
voting when we're talking about like an empire. That's all feuding and all that other bullshit. So there's all sorts of problems with that as well.
In the Spartan politics, they had a veto group that was just made up by elders. It was very interesting because you weren't able to kind of get a law passed until you had the elders saying. A very strange system that even, I think Julius Caesar had said, I wish we had something like that. Or not Julius Caesar. When they reviewed it in the past, or like, I wish we had something that was very similar to where elders were respected. But the problem was, like, nothing ever got done because elders didn't like anything.
Yeah, they don't like any change. That's the problem with that.
Alexander the Great's father, I think he said something like this, like, oh, what a nice system. But by the time Alexander the Great went to Spartan, they were a shadow of themselves because it can never modernize because the elders were always just such crotchety old men.
Yep, they didn't want to change. They liked their prunes and oatmeal, and God forbid if you tried to serve them.
So my idea of non-taxpayers not contributing to the voice of where the
I'm
government
just
would go
saying-
is bad.
I don't like the idea of disenfranchising people who can't work. I don't like that. Regardless,
They have their time of contribution when they work.
No,
and
then they're only allowed.
stopping.
And then they're only allowed to vote when they have a job.
When they contribute,
Which is
yes,
bullshit.
then they have
What if they get fired?
yearly voting.
What if they get fired and in between, maybe like they get fired in June and they haven't worked since June, and then an election comes along and they aren't allowed.
They contributed the last year.
What if they're out of
some sort of income tax?
What if they get
correct?
fired and they have trouble finding a job for a year?
That's fine.
Do they not get a vote that
for
year?
a whole year?
Yeah, for a whole year. Let's say
for a whole year. So you stop working January 30th in 02.
Yeah, say it takes
and you don't find a job until July 1st, 03.
Say it
Then
takes
yeah,
you
you
2
can't
years.
vote in 04.
See, that's fucking
It's not.
bullshit.
This is not a.
No,
this
that's
is not
bullshit.
a stripping away thing.
I don't like it.
It is if you contribute to the society by having an income, then you can vote on where the society
How about
goes.
if you have contributed to society, not you are contributing? You can just have a job for 2 weeks
because
and then
then
call
you
it
have
good.
to mail-in vote based on your yearly tax application.
I don't like
because
that.
that's already a federally
Nope.
funded thing that then could just tack on.
You've got
elections too.
No, you've got
Or a state thing. You have levels of bureaucracy. You can just piggyback this
no one will
onto.
ever have kids, Micah.
First of all, no one will ever have.
That is not a bad thing, Sarah.
It is though, because then we have.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not bad individually.
Is it? Have anything humans done been like, that's the reason they should go on for another 1,000 years? I haven't found it yet.
Well, my thought here is that yes, I think that we should keep
to
on
have
having
kids.
people.
You can't have everyone deciding not to have kids.
Game theory.
Yes, game theory.
It's not a matter of not having kids.
No,
but
you can
that's
still
part
work
of it.
and have a kid.
The problem here.
Many Americans have proved
Yeah,
that.
but-
In fact, many humans throughout all of history have proved
Yeah,
that.
but if you have a kid, at least one person in your household or family has,
For sure, for like
or they have
6
to,
months,
or
then
they
you
have
can-
to hire a
then you can-
nanny,
hey,
and then
here's the
everyone
thing, then
gets a
you can
vote in that.
high five to the other person in that child's rearing, and then give up a 6 months on the other end, and you both still have the ability to vote.
I feel though applying.
No.
The problem with this income thing too is that I hate the fact that our health insurance is tied to income for most people.
Yes, because it's gross and dumb.
I don't like the idea of giving my employer any more power over my life than just giving me a paycheck.
But that doesn't. If you work for a day, you are taxed on that day. You have a right to vote.
But then why don't I just start a company called iVoteYou.com and I just give people $1 and then now they have a
Are you
W-2.
saying that is not a capitalistic idea that someone should not invest in?
This is like just regular voting with extra steps.
But it's not, because many people who have the right to vote now don't. So if their right to vote is tied on what they do in society, they are then more invested in the society.
No.
Well, I mean, there was a concept where if you deny someone the right to vote, then they would get really upset, even if they were never planning on voting.
Yeah, exactly. It's
But if
taking
you
away
give
your
everyone
rights.
the right to vote, if they don't vote, they don't feel bad. You have to earn your right to vote somehow, and being born in America is not a good enough right.
I don't think so. I think
The way you are birthed is a good enough right for you to participate in
Sure.
the government?
Yeah.
That's pretty monarchical.
A little, but I mean,
sorry, humans, that's just what we do.
There's no other way around it, too. I mean, if you said something like a literacy test, then that's kind of like what they did in the past, or a polls tax.
But I'm not caring about your competency to vote. It is the same level of neglectful informationism that any person voting can have. I guarantee, I'm not a terribly smart person, but there were a dozen of people that I voted for on my last voting bill I had no idea about. If I had to earn my right to vote, I would care more about those votes because it was something I had to take actions in order to earn.
You say that as if that actually would happen, but I just don't know if that's true because it's not a policy we can test.
You mean it's theory?
You're just or a theory. Yeah, it's not a theory we can test because
Well, it's an opinion for one.
Well, that, but
It is something we absolutely can test because that's the glory of America. We could have a state put these laws out and have it be approved by whatever horrible
no one would
state assembly
ever
they
ever
have.
agree to that.
Maybe Mississippi.
Give me 5 years and let's see how Arkansas votes are. I could probably push some shit.
Nah, I don't like this idea, Micah. I veto your bill.
I mean, Sarah, you don't. Are you upset that prisoners have no right to vote after they serve their time?
Yeah, I am.
Well, yeah, because that's bullshit.
That is bullshit.
When you're serving your time, you don't have a right to vote.
Agreed.
Because you committed a crime against the society, thus you can't influence the society.
And that's the point of that incarceration.
Wait a minute.
You
So
are
you guys,
removed from society.
You're okay
That's
if
a
a
punishment.
prisoner is serving his or her time?
If a person is currently incarcerated, they do not have the ability to vote on any election.
I would agree with that.
If that
Why?
falls within their current incarceration.
Why?
But once they've served
Because
their time,
they committed a crime. Yeah, they committed a crime against society of which they would have a voice in sculpting.
I'm going to challenge this. Why is it okay to take anyone's right to vote? Because you're just committing disenfranchisement with a rationale.
Because
they are actively against society at that point.
Yeah,
They are.
the actions they took are against what society wants to be. And they need a punishment for that.
While they are serving their time, while they are being punished, their privilege of voting is taken away from them.
Okay, but what if it's something like a media's person who's just spreading out lies? They're actively harming society as well. They're not committing any lies.
Oh, no, they should be lynched for treason.
Well, I mean, yes, obviously.
Okay, maybe that's a little extreme, but...
Someone who says,
I don't think
hey,
so.
by the way, you can vote tomorrow instead of today. That's okay. Didn't break any laws, but it has a large enough robocollar to do so. That person is also actively harming society in an undemocratic way, but still has a right to vote. So the idea that you're okay with punishing people as long as they're legally recognized to be punished is fine because they're actively harming society. But are they actively harming society?
If you are in prison for let's say, haphazardly, you hit someone in a crosswalk when you weren't supposed to be able to turn right at a red light, and that somehow lands you in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel you should have a right to vote in a presidential election if you made that mistake in society and killed a person? Let's say it's the worst possible outcome of that traffic incident.
I'm not sure why they're related. That's the problem with this means testing, so to speak. I made a mistake due to gross negligence of my driving a vehicle that could kill people.
So you abused your privilege of owning a vehicle and driving that vehicle on roads that all taxes pay for.
That might not be
in the course,
an abuse. That might just be a mistake. It might have just been that you didn't
sure,
see
but
him.
in the course of that responsibility set upon you by the driving laws we have in this country, you made a mistake and it resulted in the, though inadvertent, death of another American citizen.
Right.
That action in itself deserves some type of recompense.
Yeah, that's called being in prison.
Yep.
So, as part of that recompense, since every American citizen has a right to vote based on birth if you're born in this country, the removal of that right to vote with you as someone who's incarcerated is a added on punishment feature of you being an American.
That's weird. I don't know if you guys can see how strange
No, what's
that
weird is punishing that when you're not being incarcerated.
No, it's weird that...
What is fine is, like, you don't have a right to contribute to society when you have broken society's laws.
No, but that's the thing about this. In this case, I break the law because I had done involuntary manslaughter. Someone had died because of my actions, whether my actions are due to incompetence or not.
But if you're a media person
But if
who
I'm a
is spouting lies and it potentially evoking anger and rage that may or may not result in the death of several people, like...
Pizzagate.
Yeah, Pizzagate. I can't remember everyone involved, but yeah.
I mean, there's a lot. You can put Kyle Rittenhouse and all that bullshit,
But,
too.
like, did they go to prison for that?
No.
The Pizzagate guy did.
No, the guy who pulled the trigger, yes, but not
Yeah,
the person who...
But not the person who was spouting all these lies about it.
Right.
And making other people believe them.
See, this is my thought about it. It's like, we're okay because...
That's a different set of laws.
No, but
What?
this is the demanding part about it. Because if someone said, look, why are you in prison? It's like, because I made a terrible accident. I took a right when I wasn't supposed to. And by the way, operating a vehicle is no joke. Car accidents happen, 50,000 times a year at least. So this is not something like, well, it's a 1 in a million chance. It's like, actually, statistics is against you here. First of all, go fuck yourself. And second of all, like, oh, well, the state recognizes that you need to be in prison for this. Well, you know what? If I had a good enough lawyer, I can get out. Oh, no. Let's talk about just the fact that you are in the prison system. We are revoking your right because you violated our laws. Yeah, but I'm going to be grouped in the same person who's like a serial killer? This doesn't make sense because ultimately speaking, somehow someone drew a line in the sand and said any prisoner whatsoever must not be able to vote. And then on top of that, many states are like, even after you serve your time. Yet we're okay with the idea that if you're a prisoner, you can't vote, which is very fucked up because it just means that the state just removed someone's right. And it's not really in the Constitution.
But that's not the state. The person committed the crime against the state.
Well,
and
the
is
state
severing
wrote the laws.
punishment from the state.
The state wrote the laws that incarcerate them based
But
on
that
the
law
society
was-
agreed upon.
That law was agreed by
Yeah,
society.
yeah.
So it was known. Everybody knows that stealing is wrong.
And it's, you're hurting your fellow man. What gives you the
Right.
right to decide anything for society if you can't be a responsible and respectful member of it?
But not all laws are hurting a fellow man or woman. And maybe the Constitution says if you're in prison,
Exactly.
you
And
can't.
not all crimes either.
Right, not all crimes.
I
So
would-
I can go to prison because...
Drugs. For
Apart
example.
from suicide, what is not harming your fellow man?
What if I said something like
I would say drug possession.
drug possession, victimless crimes?
What are those? What are air quotes victimless crimes?
Prostitution? Assuming
So
it's
why-
consensual between the two.
So then why is that a crime?
It's
In
because
some states it is, because society says it is, even though it's totally
So
bullshit.
paying for a prostitute is a victimless crime, even though prostitutes are charged more often than their Johns. The prostitute selling themselves.
That's what I'm
often-
saying. They shouldn't be going to jail. That is a...
But they are at a higher rate
Yes.
than those that are
here's another one that I...
procuring
The
their services.
crime is the fucking fact that their job is a crime.
Some of them are more ridiculous than that. Like, if I open a lemonade stand without a permit, that's a crime. Who is the victim?
You probably won't go to jail for it, but...
No, right.
Yeah, is that going to be a jailable
Well,
crime?
But
if
prostitution? Yeah, you could go to jail for that. And then you what? Lose
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially.
But this is...
And then you lose your right to vote. And that's not okay.
None of this makes sense, right? So, like, as long as money exchanges hands, now that's considered a crime. But, hey, if I'm just a person looking for a good time and I don't care about money exchanging hands, then that's totally fine. You can have a good time with as many people as you like, all of these apps that exist today.
Yeah, that is such bullshit.
But the moment you change hands with money, now you're in trouble. Okay, but why? Well, we have all these evidence to say that this is bad morally speaking. This is bad because of trafficking. This is bad because we don't want our society to do this. This is bad because it's against my religion. It's like, yeah, but why the hell if it matters to you? So if I go and I want a good time and someone buys me dinner and then after that I have a better time, that's okay. Even though money didn't exchange hands, some type of good did. I'm just trying to
Wait,
tell
is
you...
the better time second dinner or
midnight dinner. The problem here is that none of this makes any fucking sense the moment you kind of like look at it from an objective perspective of, wait, there are plenty of crimes that don't hurt anybody but are strictly moral or religious views that are enacted and enshrined by
and
law.
those should not. And those
do
should
you
not
not
result in a
feel
prison
that
sentence.
those crimes would change due to the age generation skewing to the younger
Absolutely not.
No.
No?
No, there's...
You don't think that if there was a law on the books today for 18 plus people saying that prostitution is legal in America, it is on the general ballot, it is of the majority of Americans to make, that legalized prostitution would not be acceptable on a federal level?
I don't...
Half of them
You
will
don't think
not
that would
vote.
happen?
Half of them will not vote, and the other people who do vote won't be enough to offset the people who are cranky religious.
But if you gave
crazies.
it 10 years and those that aren't providing an income were able to vote on it,
I would argue, Micah, that
or weren't able to vote on
there
it,
are going to be more laws that are going to be enacted than more that are going to be repealed.
you think?
Oh yeah, I think that
Really
there are
think?
14,000 federal laws that exist today, more now. And they say something like every day a person probably breaks 3 felonies, laws unknowingly, such as,
Oh no, I do it when I wake up.
do you go to sleep naked? Well,
Yep.
why are you asking? Well, because in Minnesota that's illegal from like the
fuck.
1990s.
Oh, I do that with a pair of wire cutters in my back pocket.
Well, how
Don't ask me
naked
how.
are we talking?
How naked are we? Like these are the laws. Like you
Like,
can't have a duck wear
what
pants
specifically? Where's the statue?
is a joke, or you can't have ice cream cone in your pockets. Like maybe some of this stuff made sense. Like the ice cream cone in the pocket was because you're luring a horse away from its owner. Okay,
Yeah.
these things are
So you're saying that laws in themselves are things that should be revisited multiple times as to keep augmenting
No
and
one does that.
mutating with
No
the
one-
current stage of
No,
society.
no one actually takes laws off the books. We only add more in. Under the exceptions of like, oh wait, maybe we should really look at this. And even then 50% of the electorate were going to vote against their best interest. Governor
They're
Dayton
stupid.
of the previous governor, he said, oh, we should have a year that just looks at removing laws off the books that are stupid. He's going to call it the un-year. And it never happened because no one has any incentive to actually make the rules better. We only have
all
more
they're gonna do
incentives.
is just not enforce them. That's
Right.
all they will do.
And so like, I
They'll
think
just be like, we're gonna ignore this.
state capital, women could not wear pants. This is just, and so you go on ahead and like, yeah, maybe many of these are not criminal, but there's still a lot of them that are. And then you take their vote away from them. And now you're creating a pervasive system that you're trying to get as many undesirables to your camp to be in prison as quickly as possible so that you eliminate the opposition so that they can't organize. And so that when they get out, not only do they have terrible things against them, they have a criminal record so they can't get a good job. They've already lost many years of prime time that they get to get themselves educated or to train. And then on top of that, they can't even vote. So they can't even vote to make their situation better. Oh, and the best part about it is many of these people are getting paid $1 an hour to do American jobs. So they're already competing against their American workforce. And if they do a job that's of great service, like firefighting that they have to do in California, they can't even get the job as a volunteer firefighter because they have a criminal record. But they're forced to do... None of this makes any sense. So then, like, okay, well, you know what? They could make their life better if they voted for somebody. Oh, you can't do that. You can't vote when you're in prison, and you certainly can't vote when you get out, depending on the state you're in.
Well, see, here's the thing, Phil. Everything you've been arguing against, which are many great points, are how the system works now.
That's the point, is that any time you introduce a new system, the joke is that you're going to make a new standard to get rid of all these standards, and now you introduce the 11th standard to it. Oh, wow. The problem here is that we have too many computer languages, so I'm going to make Java Plus. And then now Java Plus is just another myriad of the other computer languages you have to add. Your idea of saying, look, I want to have a system where contributing members of society vote is going to be perverted, and there's going to be laws of unintended consequences, of which people in power are most definitely going to use lowering shenanigan tactics to disenfranchise even more people that they don't want. And you think gerrymandering is bad today, if you think disinformation is bad today, if you think that voter rights being curtailed are bad today, you can imagine just how juicy this target is for the people that currently want people not to vote. I mean, it's just going to be like Christmas.
Just fire them all before an election.
Yeah, we tried that not that long ago. And it turns out that people really like these sons of bitches.
They still would have worked in a day prior to that election.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. That one won't work. Okay.
I have a very low requirement. You need to be employed and pay taxes for a day.
Okay, so like in the 3 years leading up to it, if you find out your workforce or whatever, if you find out their political affiliation from, office talk, you can fire those people and then just not rehire them.
Did they work for a day?
Doesn't matter. It's 3 years before the next election. Say it's 3 years before the next
3 years before?
Whatever, 2 years before. Doesn't matter.
Uh-huh.
They could have voted, but then they get fired, and then no one will hire them because everyone knows that they're a Democrat and they believe in whatever, but big bosses don't want to hire Democrats because they're bad for their end line. So they're not going to hire this guy, and he's stuck without a job for years.
The whole malicious thing that I think the point you're taking away from this is that everybody gets a mail-in vote if they worked a day in order to report income tax.
Yeah, but wait, this doesn't make sense because the people who don't contribute right now, either that they're unemployed or that they have disability or that they're not working, whatever it is. Let's just say that the Republicans want more votes. Well, they'll just start a company called iVote.com, and then they will go ahead and give them 1 day's wages for $8 for the people that they want to vote and not for the people that they don't. So that you're just buying votes then. This is just the current system as it is today, but with extra steps, but also more abilities for shenanigans to occur.
Do those extra steps not make it more annoying for the
Hardly.
progress to happen?
No, this is just more like you're giving...
No. You're making it harder for people that want the progress not to happen in order for them to make it happen.
Not that hard.
So they have to throw money at non-voters that can't vote in order to get them to vote. And the other side is going to do the exact same thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So now you're dealing with the hearts and minds of people that are contributing.
They aren't contributing. They're literally getting free money to vote.
Which they may not.
No, they're getting a day's wage to vote. Are you saying that $50 will get you to vote one way or another?
Free money that they can tell the government.
For a day, and you're already getting free money from the government. You're getting free money to support your life that you don't have to work from other means. Are you saying that somebody coming in, you got Johnny Warbucks saying, I'll give you $50 if you vote this one way for this one time, as opposed to the lifestyle you're already providing for yourself through governmental means, and you are just trusting in other generations to vote to keep it going?
Yes.
That you yourself can participate in lobbying for these things to keep going.
They're just
you can
cheating
be those
the system.
personal sob
They're
stories.
literally just cheating the system.
Yeah, this whole system.
Takes
That's
away
the same
from...
thing. This is an additional roadblock to put in the way.
It's barely a
they can't
roadblock.
stop this.
It's barely a roadblock.
It's something,
it's
isn't
nothing.
It's just a bureaucratic
It's literally
nightmare.
nothing.
Right, and that is fucking something.
No,
It's nothing,
Republicans hate bureaucracy.
You know what's going to happen,
It'll-
right? Like, I'm sorry to overtalk Dara, but
No.
like, many people don't actually have a banking accounts that are from minority groups. And you're thinking, well, how can you not even have this terrible one that's all plastered around the Twin Cities? But these people don't even have the wherewithal to be able to trust the banks to have open up an account. So when they get a check, they have to go to payday loans. And then that payday loans gets 10% of their check.
Sure. Why does that deal with income tax?
It deals with
Are you
income
saying
tax
there's so
because
many people
people
under the table?
don't want to deal with bureaucracy, and those that don't are typically the most vulnerable. And so the idea that you have this ability to say, well, if you really wanted to vote, then why don't you go ahead and just get a voter ID? Or if you really wanted to vote...
No, this is not voter ID. Why are people not incentivized to play by the rules if it gives them the right to vote? So you have those
Or
that
you cheat
are trying to
to-
work under the table.
Or you
They're
cheat.
trying to...
You cheat.
And yeah, and again, what's the stuff that people that are nefarious who don't make any money and then just be able to say, look, I made $1 this year.
I made a
That's
day's-
my wage.
I made a day's
Here's my
wage this
income,
year.
right? And then so people are naturally going to be like, hey, that doesn't make sense. It has to be some level that's responsible. And then now you're going to actually open up that thin edge of the wedge and start creating a...
Thank you, Phil. And now that you've expanded on where I wanted this conversation to go, after an hour, we will have to pause and carry this on in a future episode.
There's no sequel to this.
After an hour, Phil
Hey,
and Sarah.
I enjoyed this one, and let's be honest, it was only 40 minutes, really. We had like 20 minutes of
That
bullshit
doesn't
at
matter.
the
That's still
beginning.
long for us.
All right. Well, we didn't solve any world problems, but that's fine. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.